So I'm talking about open access pedagogical material, looking at my own book, Introduction to Speech Processing, which is now in the second edition. And I am Associate Professor Tom Bäckström from the Aalto University. Yes. So starting off with motivation. So why I wanted to create this material. So in 2016, I started teaching a course named Speech Processing, which is a kind of course which has existed for a long time. But now the previous teacher was retiring, and I inherited that course. I didn't want to use the old material, but I also couldn't find any material online which I would be satisfied with. There were some books, but the books were not really so good. I had earlier published a book, Speech Coding with Springer, but writing a book in this age felt old-fashioned. So kind of why would I have a publisher as a middleman? It just seemed like a extra cost for both for the students, and also why print on paper? Because I mean, so I see kind of most materials are original PDFs, and kind of we could just have that PDF online, for example. So why need to print it? I didn't see a reason for that. So the question is then that how can we make the overall process more efficient, in the sense that it would be cheaper. So cutting out the middleman makes it cheaper. And then very important is, of course, that I wanted to improve learning. So there's lots of things now when we look at speech processing. So it's about speech and audio signals. So it's very good kind of mode for interaction, like demonstrations. So having those demonstrations are not really possible in a book. So something online is naturally much better for learning. And of course, if it's online, it reaches more people, get better impact. One thing which also attracted to me was the easier to update. So with that old book, the Speech Coding, kind of a couple of years after publishing, it already felt that so much had happened in science that the book was already old. So I wanted to have the ability to update it easily and more continuously. So perhaps I show here now the demonstration how it looks like. So this is what I ended up with. So it's the web page. You can see the address up here. So it's the speechprocessingbook.aalto.fi. But if you just write Introduction to Speech Processing in any search engine, you will find it. And yeah, so it works just like any web page. There's kind of, let's take here from one example here, for example, noise attenuation. So here's text and references. So it's nothing kind of not a new format in itself. But we'll look more on the web page in a second. And now it's because so it's really easy. So it's in the economic sense that to do this, I got a virtual like a web address from Aalto, so I didn't have to pay for anything. So there's no middleman because Aalto is already my employer. And if anyone wants to find anything about speech processing, they go to a search engine and they will land in my book. So it really kind of improves the impact of the material, and I can update it at any time. So I actually keep on improving. So the course has now for this year it has just finished, and now I have a long list of improvements that I want to make because of this year's course or things which I realized this year. I also get a digital object identifier through Zenodot to it. So I get it also to the benefit of having it on my publication list. Of course, important is to have it open access so that maximizes reach. So I think it's for me very efficient way to get readers. So kind of by my time is used efficiently when it's open access. But at the same time, I think that I'm like a public servant hired by the kind of Finnish state. So if I would publish this through a publisher, I would get paid for that, and that seems like a strange thing that I would get paid extra for doing my job. So it's not really ethically clean. But no, with this open access format, it's really clean in every sense. And it's Creative Commons, which means that anyone basically can come and help me out and improve the book. And we'll look at that in a second also more. But I have lots of chapters written by sub-area experts, so I'm not expert in all areas. So getting the book to be better means that I have lots of co-authors. And also kind of more eyes improves quality. Also, quite often I get emails from around the world saying that, hey, on this chapter, there's something kind of funny, or that something could be done better. So that really improves quality when we have it in this format. And also teachers around the world can then, for their own courses, they can pick and choose which parts they need and make like their own web page, which has only those parts of the content which they need for their course. So it's really easy or very flexible for teachers as well. Now, I don't know of this audience if anyone of you actually knows the kind of Jupyter Lab or Jupyter Notebook. But that's the kind of the software which I use in the background to create everything, all of this. So it's something which is used for all scientists with a programming background or lots of scientists with a programming background have started to use this, because it's a very nice way to mix documentation and code. So can go back to this web page here to see. So here we had like text, and then there can be here code intermixed with the text parts. Now this code was hidden because it's not important for understanding this content here. But here's a database. So here is a segment of code which is exactly what the text explained above. Now it's implemented here, and then there's a picture below which explains what happened like a visualizes what happened. Here's some more code which was not important for understanding this example. So in this way, it's quite kind of very easy way to teach coding when the text and code can be mixed, and also the visualizations. What is also nice here is that this allows interactive demonstrations. So it's the demo here in a different page here. So let's make this larger like that. So if we have some data, so like, for example, analyzing some data, we can easily make this sort of pictures which are interactive. So you can go and modify them. You can move around like this. You can zoom in this with a mouse wheel, and you can even go and point on individual points and to see what is in there. So this is just a very simple kind of example of how what is easy to do in this environment, such that it kind of helps students learn the content when they can interact with that. And also there's we can listen to the output. So now my content is always about speech signals and how to work with them. So back in this example, this first example here, we have a plot over an audio signal here, and we can, from the bottom, we can.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
And so kind of you hear the same thing as you see in the picture. And when we do some processing here, it's a noise gate, which basically is supposed to remove noise, so remove parts which are not speech. So here it removes these parts which were not speech, and we can listen to how it sounds after removing noise parts. It's not a very good way for removing noise, but it's just a kind of explanation of why we do what we do.
Are you not entertained?
Yes. So just to make you feel that kind of we actually can do speech enhancement, which is more reasonable here. Lower down is a better example, which actually works a bit better already.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
So in this way, kind of stepwise, I improve the noise removal, and that kind of becomes very visual and audible, so kind of for the students to learn this content. And but I'm not going to now demonstrate it, but students can also try it themselves. So they can either copy this code to their own computer, or they can actually in a live mode edit it and try it out themselves. So, for example, they could now this audio sample I had there was from a movie, but they could record their own voice in a background noise and then put it in the demonstration and hear how the same things work for their own voice. So, and I think that kind of things really make it much more kind of easier to learn, or improves learning when it's not just some random demonstration, but it's their own voice which gets modified in the process. And for the teacher, so if you already know programming, then this is rather easy to create. So the Jupyter is a platform which many use already, so they are familiar with it. But Jupyter does only single pages. Now, to collect them all into a book, I use a different added platform, a Jupyter book, which collects everything into a book and makes this table of contents. And it also provides here kind of methods for having kind of these references. So I try to use references in here. So I click here, it goes to the reference list. So this was the book I referenced there, and I have a DOI also here, so I can directly link to the source material. So students who want to go back to the source can do that. So then this web page is then really what is for the students to use. But if you want to access the code, like the source code which created the whole book, I have published that all on GitHub, which is a place which many programmers use to distribute their codes. So that's kind of already in use. So I didn't have to really create anything new for it. I just used the existing service. And it's published on the Aalto website. And technically it's a virtual web server, but for me it's a web address, and then kind of when I create that Jupyter book content, then I can just copy it to a network drive. So it works like a hard drive on my computer. I just copy there, so and then it immediately appears live on the web. So it's really low effort to create this kind of content and update it. Now it's a separate demo here, but I already had basically the demo while talking. So perhaps go a bit to design philosophy here. So why I did it the way I did it, or how I basically maintain this, and how it, what my thoughts here is. Now, create something and iterate that refers to a process where kind of I really just, when I have new content or when I want to have new content, I just start writing and quite soon put it online. So without the high threshold of quality, for example, so that we can get into an iterative loop, and immediately when someone actually looks at it, they'll have feedback, and then I can kind of, based on that feedback, improve it. So it's really trying to use feedback from every possible person uses the content, so that the learning would be quick. So my own learning and the content basically would learn what is good way to do things. I also really don't want to strive for perfection. So I do want to have a good enough quality. So it should be good enough. But if we really put lots of time to make it perfect, it means that there's a very high threshold of ever modifying it. And when science goes forward, which that restricts kind of how we update it over time. So it gets old before it gets updated. So it's actually quite long time old before someone dares to touch it again. So I'd rather have continuous improvement, so that kind of we stay up to date all the time. And that has also an added benefit that I really would like to get collaborators as much as possible. I already have about 10 co-authors, but I would like to have more. So I have put quite a lot of emphasis on making improvements, so making it easy to kind of contribute in improvements by new co-authors, and I try to embrace all contributions, and that's also visible here in the book. So I have here at the first page, I have a contributing instruction. So there's both the contributing page and code of conduct, and all the current authors are listed here on the first page to give them credit. And in the contributing code of contributing, there's kind of first page to kind of for easy things to contribute, and then there's instructions for developers to how to actually make the details of contributing easier. Like, so you have the kind of how kind of, yeah. Anyway, so, and I found that the more I have readers of the material, then that also invites more contributors, so that then can also the quality increases or improves all the time when I become, or this material becomes more popular. So conclusions. So first of all, kind of spontaneously every year in the student feedback forms at the end of the course, lots of students say that they like this content, that it's different than many other teachers do, and kind of so it is popular, and I think it really is the best way that I can think of how to present this type of engineering content currently. But it's not only my students, also quite spontaneously, but many of my colleagues internationally have told me that they encourage their students to read this content. So it's not really easy to track how many people actually use it, and perhaps I don't want to track them either. But it's just good to know that it's actually quite widely used. And there's about 15 citations currently, and that's not so. Kind of collecting citations to this material is not a goal, but still a nice indication that people actually read it and use it. And that's more or less what I had planned to talk about. That I'm happy now to then take questions.